Hey, are you feeling ready to get started? If you joined us last week, or maybe Monday last week, same thing, you'll remember that we were looking at accessibility, really sort of the applied concept of accessibility as part of us learning more about web development. And accessibility is the art or the practice, or oh, what do we like better? Is it art? Is it a practice? Accessibility is when that keeps us from is it an art, is it practice? It's when you intentionally design your web development work. It's when you intentionally um, shape your web design work to make sure that people with a wide range of different needs are going to be able to access your website. And one thing we've taken a look at a lot is we say, oh, how can we make our websites more meaningfully accessible to folks who are using screen readers? And that's often going to be a big part of this. But it's not just screen readers we're talking about. We're also talking about users who need different levels of contrast because of the way they see things. We're talking about users who perhaps use, and we're going to learn some more about this in a second, but who, oh, let me get my chunky mouse, who don't use a mouse, but who are keyboard only as they navigate the web. And really, I know this makes me sound like the world's biggest goof, but as web developers, and you're a web developer, you've written HTML, you've written some CS, you are a web developer. As web developers, it's really our responsibility to make sure what we're building is as accessible as possible. Cool. I hope all of you are having the easiest possible morning or afternoon, or oh, one of you dialing in the evening, terribly late. Don't stay up too late on this. We'll be done in a second. We'll go through a little bit quick today and get you sort of on your way and hopefully relaxing with the rest of your evening. Now we're going to look at a date picker, and this is really important. So if we look at what we've got here, if we look all the way on the right hand side, we're seeing the output where it says tournaments, Mortal Kombat tournament survey. And then it says, please tell us the best date for the competition. This is the preferred date and a submit button. And that doesn't work for me at all. That doesn't work for, I'd say, almost any user. But it's definitely not going to work for a user that is using a screen reader, is using assistive technology. So text and submit are types we've already learned. And text as an input field is going to give you a blank text box. And that's not necessarily going to be great for folks using assistive technology. And we've already learned about submit, which is just this boomf submit button you see here. I'd go ahead and argue that these accessible date pickers are important outside of accessibility issues. Can anybody think of a reason that it might be important? Say maybe if you had an international audience, it might be important that you had a standard format for a date picker. I'm going to go ahead and move through this assignment while you all lovingly yell at me. Why might we want a standardized date picker instead of a text field for dates? We've also learned a little bit about backwards compatibility. So say, oh, you know what? Browsers have changed a lot over the past 25, 30 years. Oof, the web's been around a while. So if your user's using an older browser, using this date format is going to default back to a text field, and that's good. Oh, good afternoon, Catherine. You're always a joy. All of you are always a joy to see here. So we're going to add an input tag with the type attribute of date, an ID attribute of pick date, and a name attribute of date. And it's going to look a little bit like this. So input type equals date. The ID will be pick date. And the name attribute will be date. We can do that. And you know what? This is keeping us real steady because it's telling us exactly where we want to do this. We say, okay, input. Oh, input type is equal to, oh, good morning or good afternoon. Oh, does it capture time zones? Jonathan, I love this question. This doesn't in a very effective way. Oftentimes, if you want to be doing stuff with time zones, often that's going to involve some JavaScript. I'm sorry. And it'll usually rely on working with a standardized database. And a database, oh, do you know what? I've recently changed my backdrop. So a database is like a bookshelf, isn't it? A database will have all of these spaces where you can keep data and then individual pieces of data with information associated with them. So a database is like a bookshelf with books or a empty box with information in it. And there are some standardized databases around time zones, and you're really going to need to rely on those most of the time. And the reason you're going to want to rely on those is that, and this absolutely blows my mind every time I think about it, time zones change all the time. Um, the last one I saw is just in November. Someone's joining daylight savings and another country's leaving it. Time zones are the bane of every programmer, but databases are there. Oh, Catherine's asking if I've got One Punch Man on my shelves. I'm afraid I don't. I've got wait, hang on, we'll do this and we can ask about manga after if you like. Yeah, no One Punch Man, I'm afraid. I haven't read it yet myself. So we've got an input and the type is it's a date. That makes sense. And we're gonna add a ID. We're gonna add an ID. And it's asked us to have the ID of pick date. How off topic I get where I'm like, oh, time zones are the worst thing that's ever happened. And let's talk about, don't you apologize. I love to be distracted. If anybody's being a goofball, it's consistently me. It's also asked us to add a name in the attribute of date. And look how lovely this is. Day, month. It's gone ahead and told me, hey, this is the format that I expect this date to be in. Look, oh, I can click on this and it lets me select the date. I love this. This is especially good if you've got maybe Europeans and Americans filling out the same form. Because Americans, we love, love, love to. Do we do month, day, year? Is that I've lived outside the States a long time. I want to say that's how we do dates, but deep in my newly European heart, I also think, no, no, that's madness. No one would do that. Whereas the rest of the world tends to go day, month, year. And the International Standards Organization, the ISO, when they talk about dates, they want you to go big to little. So year, month, day. Here, you're saying, yeah, that the US does put months first. Unacceptable. Rah, rah, rah. I'm going to run our tests. It's saying 5%, but it means 55%. We know what happens. Yeah, everything's fine. And I'm not picking on Americans. I just think the month, day, year, it's a little bit distressing when the rest of the world does something else. So we're going to standardize our times as well. And this isn't going to handle time zones for us in a magical way, but we are going to use the date time attribute. Yeah. And the date time attribute, what we're doing here is we're adding a semantic clue. And what we're saying here is like, hey, screen reader, or hey, user who needs some extra content, because we're never talking to the screen reader, are we? We're talking to the user through their assistive technology. And what we've got here is a big paragraph of text. And if I'm a screen reader user, I'm using assistive technology. Maybe I don't care about this thank you stuff. Maybe I'm in a hurry. I got things to do. I just want to know when the tournament's going to be. So being able to skip to the date is going to be really important. We're going to use the date time attribute. Let's look at an example. Here's a paragraph tag, master camper cat, dot, 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 dot. And here's what this looks like. Time. So this is a time element. How cool. Yeah. And now we're going to add date time. Oh yeah, so we can change this using programming to make it, yeah, perfect. So being able to really present this in a way that's readable and sensible is what we're all about. So we're going to go ahead and start before the Thursday because that's when our date really starts, doesn't it? We're going to say, well, the time, this is a time element. And the date time we're setting is equal to, and you know, before I forget, because I love to forget, go ahead and close our time element just to keep that right. And the date we're going to set this to is 2016. Whoa, wait, and this is which order do we put these in? Ooh, help, help, help. Holds a valid format of the date. So is this September 15th? Yeah, I think this goes year, month, day. So this feels like September. I was asking if this is September 15th, but there's no 15 month. We can be reasonably confident that this is 26. So we're using ISO here. 2016, September 15th. Did y'all see me briefly be like, well, I don't know, it's the 15th month or the ninth month? Probably September, isn't it? Oh, are we able to pick? Oh, are we able to pick a certain date as the default on a date input? Oh, I think we should be able to. Let's go ahead and take a look at what options we have here. So I'm just over in MDN. Date picker, MDN. So I'm reasonably sure that we can, and this is such a good question. I'm reasonably sure we can set a default date, right? Oh, using the now attribute. Oh, and would now set that to today by default? Value, input date. Oh, absolutely. We can go ahead and set the default date for value. And you're suggesting there's a now attribute that sets it to today. Max, min, step. Let me go ahead and kick this over to you all. Because you are always so remarkably helpful. And Jonathan, this is such a good question. I really appreciate you asking. I'm going to come all the way back and we're going to come back in here again. Oof, I'm going to have to do this all over again. Am I? Yeah. But we've just learned how to do it, and me doing it one more time isn't going to keep me awake at night. We're going to come right before the Thursday. And one more time real fast. Go to time. Date time is equal to 2016. Oh, heck. 2016, 0915. We're going to close that right back up. And we're going to end our time element as well. Everything's fine. We're going to run our tests. Things continue to be going swimmingly. And now we're going to do a cool thing. What if I want an element to only be available to somebody using a screen reader? And I'd be really excited if you all can talk to me about examples. Oh, when might I only want to show something or only want to present this to someone using a screen reader? But we've got an example here. And the example here is saying, hey, what if you have an image that's a chart? And that's really useful for your sighted users, isn't it? Hey, I've got an image that's showing you this information in a chart. Cool. And then I want to make the same information available in a table. And that table is going to be the same information as the chart. So we're going to hide it from folks who aren't using a screen reader. And we're going to use that using this class, screen reader only. All of the other sort of tips and tricks we've tried so far have been using, where's my brain? HTML. Yeah. So this is the first CSS accessibility trick we've been trying. And these rules right here, they're always going to be the same whenever we're looking at this. So the position is going to be absolute. We're not going to move this around depending on the flow. I can never spell absolutely. We're going to move it 10,000 pixels to the left. We're just going to put that baby right off screen. You'd be like, no, she's way over there. You don't look at her. It's fine. Negative 10,000. And we're seeing a little bit of mess so far, but that mess is going to go away. Say, hey, make this little tiny hidden element 1 pixel. It exists. It technically exists. It's a pixel wide and it's a pixel tall, but it's going to be hidden from folks who aren't using a screen reader. Yeah. There are a couple other CSS approaches that do hide things. Um, and we've got a note here. Really, it's a warning. I kind of want to make it red, don't you? That says, hey, you can use display none, and that'll hide everything. But it's gonna hide it for screen reader users as well. Visibility hidden will also hide everything, but it'll hide things. Also, if the size is 0 pixels, it takes it out of the flow of your document, which means that screen readers will ignore it too. So we've gone ahead and we've filled in. You can copy and paste this, you can write it on your notebook because the CSS rules to make things hidden, except for folks using a screen reader, are pretty much always going to be the same as this. That's going to be really reassuring. If you were, I was going to say, if you were my age, you could have written it on your Trapper Keeper and taken it to school. We're going to run our tests. Things keep being fine. So I think this is really important, not just for accessibility, but for everyone. Is this, when we see this example on the right, deep thoughts with master, that's terribly difficult to see, isn't it? So this light gray on white it's not great. And there's a lot of contrast checkers online where you can run your website through and it'll say, your contrast isn't high enough. But as a general rule, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, the WCAG, recommend a 4.5 to 1 contrast ratio for normal text. Yeah. And a contrast ratio of 1 to 1 would be the same color, or 21 to 1 would be white against black. So you want to have it more over here, but you still want that contrast. You still want that space. So this is super light gray. We're saying that's not really working for us. It's too light. We don't have enough contrast. It's really stressing me out. Let's go for a darker gray. The other thing we could do here is make the background much, much darker and see how that works. But let's see if this feels better. Like, right, that's visually a lot more comfortable. It's still technically gray, so if your boss really wanted gray, you're still safe there. I'd personally go for a good old-fashioned white on black or white on pink, but I respect that. Maybe there's a really important reason this needs to be gray. Let's run our tests. Everything's fine. Ooh, I'm going to grab a drink. And contrast issues can be really challenging for folks. Well, I mean, really challenging for everyone, but especially for people who have color blindness issues. And this is a great opportunity to read up a little bit more about color blindness. If you were with us on Wednesday, um, we had Parham come and talk to us about complete blindness. But he talked to us about empathy as sort of a developer toolkit. So, wow, you really need empathy to get started. And reading a little bit about color blindness might be really useful. Some colorblind users can have trouble distinguishing hues from each other, but lightness can be a problem as well. Some of the most common kinds of color blindness are red-green colorblind. So keeping that in mind when you're designing your interfaces and picking your colors can be really valuable. Oh, you know what? Mervin, hey Mervin, is my fabulous moderator, and he's just dropped into the chat the Wikipedia article for color blindness, which is a really nice place to start. So the contrast just isn't good anyway, right? Like the colors are feeling a little bit muddy against each other. But if I was a colorblind user, this is stressful. Yeah. Let's go ahead and tune this up a little bit. Let's get some higher contrast to make this a little bit nicer. So we're going to increase the background color lightness from 35 to 55. We can do that. We're going to take this 3 and turn it into a 5. That got much lighter. We mixed more white into. Remember when we first talked about this HSL? We talked about it like a painter's palette, saying, oh, If you go higher than 50%, it's like you're mixing more white into your color. And if you come lower than 50%, it's like you're mixing more black or more gray into your color. Yeah, okay. And we're going to take this run from 20 to 15. So we're going to mix in 5% more dark into the text. And I think this feels a lot more comfortable, don't you? We've still got the basic hues we were going for, but it looks a lot more readable. And I think it's going to be a lot friendlier to folks with color blindness issues as well. We're going to run our tests. Our tests are thrilled with us, and we're going to go on to the next challenge. We're also going to be conscious of when we use colors to express things. And one really, really important thing is you should never, ever, 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 ever only have color to communicate something. If you've got 3 buttons and one of them is not recommended or deprecated, deprecated means we don't use it anymore. It's a fancy computer word, isn't it? And the 2 of them are gray and one of them is red, and that's the only way you've distinguished that this is a dangerous choice, you're really setting up folks who are colorblind to push these buttons, which may all look gray. And there's a note here that says there's a lot of online color picking tools which will let you see, sort of mimic how your website might look, or simulations of how colors look next to each other with different kinds of color blindness. And that's really, really nice to play with. So here we've got some text that says danger. Okay, cool. I love when it says danger. And then when it says delete internet. And I bet money that if you're looking at this on my screen, that you cannot tell that it says delete internet, because I'm here like, hmm, peering at it and it barely says it. This is light green on yellow, and that's distressing, isn't it? We're going to go ahead and we're going to tune these colors up so that they work a lot better. So we're going to change the text color. And looking at this, we've got our CSS rules for the button. I feel pretty confident at this point that the background color, that's going to be what's yellow. Yeah. Whereas color, I think that's going to be the text color, isn't it? Right now it's 33, double F 33. So a little bit of red, all of the green, little bit of blue gets us that lime color. And we're going to change that to no red, a little bit of green, and a moderate amount of blue to get into this sort of navy. It really looks almost black against the yellow. And that feels like that's a little bit more reassuring. That pops a little bit more, doesn't it? We're going to come down and run our test. I'm gently confident here that everything's okay. Everything's fine. So we're going to give, and somebody asked about this back when we were talking about alt text to say, oh, how might I give more context to my link? And that's really what the anchor text is for. And when we talk about anchor text for links, we see that our link element starts here, and it ends here. And the text that makes up our link, the text that's displayed, is called our anchor text. And here it says click here. One thing that screen readers can do is they can present a user with all of the links on the page. But if I'm a screen reader user and I say, hey, can you tell me what all the links are? And I say, yeah, of course. So the links you have available to you are click here, options, here, here, click here. That doesn't tell me a lot about these different links. So what we're going to do is we're going to move our link within the same sentence, but we're going to move it so that the anchor text is information about batteries, because we think that carries a lot more semantic meaning. Honestly, this whole bootcamp is just an excuse for me to say semantic as many times in front of patient people. And I'm going to control X that. I'm going to cut, control X, because I'm very lazy or energy efficient, as you weigh. Oh. And now anchor text isn't click here anymore, but it's information about batteries. If I'm using assistive technology and I say, hey, assistive technology, What are my options? What are the links on this page? I'm told instead of click here, it's, oh, one of your links is information about batteries. And I say, yeah, I want that. I want information about batteries. That's what I was looking for. Thank you very much. So, informative anchor text is just a really nice thing to do. We are going to run our tests and everything's fine. Oh, it's going to be such a relaxing afternoon, isn't it? Or morning, or some of you reasonably late at night. We're also going to talk about access keys. So, access keys are shortcuts you can set for things like links, which means that users can bring focus to elements just using the keyboard. And you say, oh, wow, Jess, I have no idea what that means. I say, well, of course, that's fine. It's chill. So I'm going to click on the right-hand side. So I've clicked here over where it says deep. And when I push tab, so this is tab navigation, just using the keyboard, I'm going to tab and see what this lets me focus on. And this is just to show you the idea of keyboard only navigation and what I mean when I say focus on an element. So when I push tab, it highlights this link. It says, hey, you've started the top of this page and you've pushed tab. I'm going to give you the first element I can focus on, which is a link. And we'll get to this in a second. But then I'm going to push tab again and it says, hey, here's the other element I found that I can focus on. And that's what we're talking about when we say activate or to bring focus to an element. And we're going to do something about this in the next lesson, huh? But an access key lets you push this keyboard button and skip right to a specific thing. So here it says button. The access key is set to B. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at this. Let's copy and paste this example just to see what it feels like. Here it says important button. So if I highlight this and push B, it's going to take me right to the important button. Yeah. Oh, is it Shift B? Yeah. So we're going to get rid of that one. And we're going to add the access key right here. We're going to add an access key within our link because that's what we want. We can put it before the ref. We can put it before the ID. We can put it after. It's really about where it sits in your heart, which is a very relaxing idea, isn't it? We're going to use access key, and we can just chuck this baby right in here. And here the access key for the Garfield link is a D. Very chill. And we're going to kind of take a little bit of a deep breath and scroll down. And we're going to do the same thing here. And we can push this again before the ID, but we're going to keep this standardized and keep them all in the same order. Access key. And here the access key is equal to C for Chuck Norris. How about we run our tests? Everything continues to be really mellow. So we talked just a second ago about focus. Yeah, and focus is important. And the ability to focus using just the keyboard is really what we're going to be working on right now. We already saw that, and it's telling you here that some elements, some specific kind of elements, are automatically focusable. That when you create a form input, that your users will be able to focus on that by pushing tab out of the box, just because that's what HTML does. When Bruce came and talked to us ages ago, he said, built-in beats bolt-on bigly, saying, oh, if you have a way to do this using HTML, that's the best way to do this. Yeah. So we've got a built-in way to tab navigate to our forms or to our radio buttons or to our links. But we can add the option to focus on elements that don't already have that. So let's look at this. I'm going to copy and paste this example. And I'm going to put it at the bottom. Am I? Ooh, I'm taking you all the way to the bottom, aren't I? Out of the box, when I push tab, username, it highlights that. I can't tell if it's difficult to see. The radio buttons, it'll highlight the little tick boxes. It'll highlight submit. But now it's also going to highlight, give me the option to highlight this div because I said, hey, I want to set the tab index to 0. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, what the positive or negative number means. But a 0 says, hey, make it so I can tab this. And what that means is just put it in the order you find it on the page. A negative tab index means that you could focus on it, but you can't reach it by keyboard. And that's when if you wanted to have like a pop-up window. And I know I keep telling you this is your website, you can do whatever you want as long as it's accessible and you're using good design principles. But if I can beg you, don't add pop-ups. No one likes those. Sorry, I'm so mean. Whereas like do whatever you want. It's your website, but don't you dare add pop-ups. Or please, on behalf of your users, minimize pop-ups. How's that? So what we're going to do is we're going to pause at the instructions. So we're going to add a tab index with a value of 0 to our paragraph tag. So here's our instructions. I'm just going to add this tab index value. I'm going to set it to 0. And now, if I come up to the top, I bet when I press tab for the first time, it'll focus on these instructions and say, hey, 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 I know you want to tab down. I know you want to access the rest of this, but I really want you to pause for a second and take in that you got to fill in all of your information before you click submit. Yeah, let's run our tests. Everything is chill. Let's go ahead and bop on to the next challenge. So we've just learned about setting tab index to 0 to make something tab navigable, just where it sits in the flow. But if you use positive numbers for your tab index attribute, you can say what order you want your users to be able to tab navigate through. And you say, what? And I say, oh, well, if I want the first thing you tab to be a specific element, I could say tab index 1 and you'll go there first. And tab index 2 will take you there second. And when you don't have them labeled anymore, they should go ahead and resort to the regular flow. We're going to, let's take this, Drag, I can never say your name. I'm just going to, yeah. One of our beloved friends is suggesting tab. Like tab is just a great key. Tab is such a good key to navigate with. It's very relaxing. So we're going to we're going to set our inspirational quotes to be tabbable. Okay. We're going to come on down. Well, we want input and submit input to be the first 2 items in the tab order. Okay. So we want these search. So here we want that search box to be first. And then we want this submit button to be second. We can do this. That's chill. So let's come in here and we're going to add tab index, just like we did last time with the 0, but we want this to be the first thing on the page you hit. So let's make that a 1. And we're going to make a tab index here, and we want to make this tab index 2. And before, if we were tabbing through this, we would expect to stop on the links first, wouldn't we? Because those are the first out of the box, the first built-in elements that have tab focus. But now when I push tab, it takes me right to that search box. It's a little bit, ooh, Ragnarok is saying, well, can I have a negative tab index? Yeah, we've covered that a little bit in the lesson right before. You can, but it doesn't assist with folks using their keyboard to navigate. You would use that if you were using like a pop-up window. Yeah, or some other programmatically, like generated with programming type of content. You can, but it's kind of outside the scope of what we're going to be doing now. And of course, I encourage you to look it up. And I don't want to feel like, ha ha ha, I'm withholding knowledge from you. But I hate pop ups and I don't want to teach you how to do pop ups. The worst teacher, where I'm like, yeah, explore, learn, but don't learn how to make pop ups. I mean, do learn so you can avoid it. I think you all being very overall much younger, you don't remember the horrors of pop up ads. So you're like, well, what's wrong with a pop up? So we're also going to create a media query. And a media query is a relatively new technique with CSS3. And that's allows you to change the presentation of content based on, I was just autopiloting and saying, okay, well, this is different. We're going to learn about media. We are not going to learn about media queries. You all went so fast through all of this that we're done with accessibility. Let's preview this. And then, if you all have any questions at all, we can talk about accessibility. We can talk about web development. I can show off what comics I actually have. But after that, we can also just go ahead and end a little bit early today. Before I preview this, let's talk homework. So we're done with accessibility, and there's only 4 sections in responsive web design principles. If you have time, I know it's so fast. If you have time, I'd really love for you to go through all of these responsive web design principles. These are a little bit more complex. There's a lot more reading. And really, when we're talking about responsive web design, we're talking about the ability for you as a developer to display your website beautifully and readably to people using a phone or to people using a phone in landscape mode or portrait mode. So, yeah, whether or not you flip your phone, very, very technical flipping, or whether or not you've got a great big monitor or an itty bitty one, you want to make sure that your website responds to the different sizes, to the different resolutions, and the different technical needs of your users. Fabulous. Does anybody have? Your homework is to try and get all the way through these responsive web design principles. We can look at them. There's just 4 of them. They're not that bad, I promise. Sorry, it's always dizzying when we come down like this. We've got create a media query. We've got make an image responsive, use a retina image for higher resolution displays, and to make typography responsive. These are going to be bigger, kind of chunkier lessons, but it's going to be super chill. So we're going to be doing that. And also, as always, your homework is also to have a very, very relaxing afternoon or morning or middle of the night, but you must have the easiest rest of your day as possible. Yeah. Does anybody else have any questions at all about web development or comics, or do you just want to chat for a little bit? If not, I will joyously. You love how I just slip back into teacher mode. I will joyously dismiss class early. Um, I will joyously send you back out into the world with my love. There we are. It's a bit cuddlier than a teacher would usually do. But yeah, if you've got any questions at all, I'd be really happy to answer them. Oh, so we got a question. What's happening with the JavaScript bootcamp? We've got a meeting tomorrow. We'll have, I know, we're just like, oh gosh, if we did something, it would be in January. I confess that I'm personally terrible at JavaScript. So one thing I'm going to be doing individually is over the winter break. So after this boot camp is over and before January, I'm probably going to be on my own Twitch. Let me give that to you for those of you who are in YouTube. So I'm probably going to start just informally streaming, not part of the boot camp, just me, just chilling, to review JavaScript on my own, just in case. You want to catch up informally. I will try not to swear too much. I'll try not to swear. But as much as I'm rubbish at CSS, I am decidedly rubbish at JavaScript. So the meeting we're going to have tomorrow is going to involve some folks who are good at JavaScript as well to make sure that you've got like actual good teaching alongside me. Oh, I love how you learners are just absolutely delightful to each other. It's so reassuring. I have no idea how just the nicest people on the internet come and hang out every time. One other thing I'd love to point out is if you haven't started the projects yet, I'd really love for you to take a look at these and start these. Because you might think, oh, you know what? I've got to do these all at the end. But you can be, so the tribute page, you already have all of the skills to do this. So you need to create a web page using CodePen. You don't have to worry about files. You don't have to worry about hosting. But it says, hey, it should have a main element which holds the rest of our elements. I should have an element that says ID title that talks about the title. I should have a div element. So we've already got all of the skills from this class. You can do this right now. If you're watching this now, yeah, oh well, the 2020s have been rough so far, haven't they, my lovely? Hopefully, and of course, we'll announce as soon as we got some information, we'll do some planning. If we're able to do JavaScript with, we'd aim to keep it as mellow as these and really as hopefully un-2020s as possible, eh? So, um, your additional home. You love the longer I chat, the more homework piles on. I might also suggest that good homework might include um, taking a look at the first couple of projects because we're going to do these individually. We're not going to stream them. I mean, it's your homework, they're your own projects. So coming in and starting some of these projects on your own is going to really leave you in a great position too. Maybe get the whole certification wrapped up before the winter stuff gets busy. You all are absolutely delightful to chat to. And if there are no other questions, I think I might go ahead and dismiss class. Or you all are grown-ups. You could have left whenever you wanted. But let's go ahead and wrap up class for today. We're going to have somebody coming and joining us tomorrow. And it's going to be much, much later than we usually do. So we're going to have Ashley Biscoff joining us tomorrow. And she's going to talk to us about not just developing your websites in a way that's accessible, but really what accessible writing means. And I'm really excited about this. A, because I get to stay up late and I get to stay up late. Love to stay up late. Okay, Catherine, I'll show off what manga I've got in a minute. And so I love to stay up late, but also I think this is really important. Ashley's going to talk to us about writing things in ways that are simple and accessible and digestible for folks who are from different language backgrounds. Maybe the language you're writing in isn't their first language. For folks with different cognitive abilities, and for folks that, yeah, might be tired. So really writing to keep things as understanding as possible. All right, what's the manga? Wait, that's not how directions work. I've got Oku, which is a historical alternative fiction about it's a harem romance about what would have happened if the Japanese shogunate was all female. I've got a bunch of Ranma 1/2 because it's reasonably easy to read in Japanese. Oh gosh, and then I've got some very girly stuff down at the bottom, some sort of Sailor Moon. And I'm reading Alice in Borderland at the moment because it's very dystopian. Who doesn't need more dystopian stuff in your day? Yeah, I didn't expect to be talking about comics. Oh, so this isn't the last week. So this is the 8th one. We're going to be coming back next week and we're going to be doing responsive web design together. Let's take a look at that. So we've got 12 lessons, 12 in total. Where's the curriculum? We're still going to work together through, we've got responsive web design next week. It's one more week. We're going to do CSS Flexbox the week after, which we're going to have to hustle through. That's going to be a lot. CSS grid, which is so nice. And then we're going to spend the last lesson talking through, not doing them all because we wouldn't have time to do them all, but we're going to be talking through this projects. And really, I'd love to make that last lesson as question and answer as possible to say, hey, I got stuck on this, or hey, this is weird. And we'll go ahead and try and unstick you. I'd be so, oh gosh, but the forums aren't going anywhere. So as you finish your projects, and please, 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 if it's not a bother, as you get your certifications, come and yell about this in the forum, and we will make the biggest possible fuss over you. I mean, I will just be embarrassing. Um, you all have been, and oh, no worries. So we do have a recording of that Saturday Zoom. Let me go ahead and find, or could I lovingly ask Mervin if you could find that on YouTube? I'm being very lazy, and I mean, what's the point of having a brilliant and beautiful assistant if you can't ask them to do the dull chores? Mervin's actually, do you know what? If you all love the wit and correctness that Mervin brings to research and dropping things, do you know Mervin's going to be running his own study group soon? Let me go and get it. Actually, Mervin, can I get you to drop the study group you're going to be doing soon in here? It's not programming. So I'm like, oh, it's a little bit of a hard sell. But if you're like, oh, hey, I really like learning online, and Jess has assured me that Mervin is just the loveliest person in the world, Mervin's going to be leading a study group on dinosaurs that's starting soon. And I'm personally taking it just because, I mean, programming's fine, isn't it? But how nice and stressful. What could be more relaxing than a study group about dinosaurs? As a very large, nerdy 8-year-old, it seemed like a really cool way to spend some time. So if you are like, wow, Jess seems really smart, none of that is me. That is all Mervin. And Mervin is going to be starting a dinosaur, yeah, a dinosaur study group. When does that start? Mervin, when does that study group start? You're lucky I don't put you up on screen. We'll go ahead and you know what, if you click on, oh, there we are. Let's get started on October 25th. Perfect time. There, I was gonna say just in time for spooky season, but I don't know how spooky dinosaurs are. Fabulous. You all have been, as always, absolutely beautiful to get to chat to. How about I let you go to have an easy morning or afternoon or middle of the night? And I will see you all tomorrow if you're around, no pressure, much later than we usually do to talk to Ashley, or I'll see you next week. Or if you're watching this in a recording, I'll see you whenever you feel like it. I'm going to let you go. Don't forget your homework to relax. All right. Bye, team.